Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 177. What is Iman and what it means to have Iman? And these are the references, and in this, the particular reference of importance is the meanings of the Quran, volume 1. Some excerpts are quoted from this volume. And actually, this verse also is covered in volume 3, which is not yet published. And this is our contact in case there is any question or query regarding this presentation or any of our previous presentations. Recap of the gist of our journey so far towards Deen as a system. I included this slide with a view to look at some of the points which we have covered so far from Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Baqarah so far, because this verse 177 is with that context in mind, we will be in a better position to understand it. First point is, Allah invited us to create a desire for guidance towards Sirat-e-Mustaqim. If you remember that this prayer or this supplication appeared in Surah Al-Fatiha, where Quran taught us that if you want to follow this straight path of Allah which is established, then you should come to the Quran. We learned some salient aspects of the book, that is the Quran, and particularly muttaqi, iman in the unseen, importance of salat, keeping rizq open for others, and some part of rububiyat. We also learned about some important aspects of the psyche of kufr, and which is non-Quranic basis of ideology, and its effects on the human psyche. Why the Quran cannot be the product of human intellect, and that was covered under verse 23. And this aspect is essential to comprehend in order to strengthen Iman, to become Mu'min. That is, we should convince ourselves that why Quran is the only guidance available to human beings for an alternative system to the man-made system. And that is an important point, because human beings do not follow a path unless they are fully convinced about its benefits. The creation of Adam, his ability to characterize things of the universe, and his ability to make choices, together with his emotive makeup, appeared before us. We covered it in fair amount of detail as well, and this aspect is also covered in volume 3, the meanings of the Quran. The need for external guidance highlighted to Adam to free himself from fear and huzn. So Quran right at the outset made it very clear to us that if you are under the man-made system, you are going to face fear and huzn. Huzn means all kinds of psychological anxieties. And fear, of course, is an external fear as well as our own inner vulnerabilities. So Quran said that if you come to the Quran, these things will disappear in that system. Then the account of Bani Israel as a collective entity appeared in detail, which covered the law of requital and its functioning, their struggle to become free from Pharaoh's clutches, and the consequences of their obedience and transgression was described for our guidance. And we can see how Bani Israel is behaving in today's world and how the sectarian Islam is behaving in the world. So these things are very instructive for us, that by not following the Quran, what happens to nations collectively. The Messenger Ibrahim established Mecca as the center of the Muslim Ummah, and the importance of the Kaaba as a physical symbol appeared before us. This is important because physical symbols, Quran says, are also important for collective aspects of an Ummah. Because we are physical beings, as physical beings, we have to have some kind of a culture, some kind of a custom, some ways of coming together to sort our problems. But these should be the means to the end, but not an end in themselves. Now we go to the next slide, outline of today's presentation. Here the Quran has drawn our gaze away from physical symbols. For example, the Kaaba, the direction in the collective coming together for Salat, the gathering for Hajj, and has outlined the salient features of the process for acquiring development of the self. Next is, first it reminds us that whatever has been shared so far, it needs to be viewed with this in mind, that without a change in the psyche, the outer world will never change. And we remember we went through this verse previously Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. That is, Allah does not change the state condition of a nation until they change their own psyche, their collective psyche. Ma bi anfusihim, what is within their own psyche. Deen as a system requires a far higher level of visionary expansiveness within human cognition than that of any man-made system. So Quran is taking us far above the man-made system's psyche and tells us this is the way you should view all man-made systems. Second, the journey on Sirat-e-Mustaqim commences with the willing acceptance of Iman in Allah, the hereafter, the Malaika, the books, and the Anbiya. And Malaika over here means all cosmic forces, whether these are internal or external. Internal means all those psychological forces which are within us, all those aspects which affect human psyche. Third, despite a natural affinity for wealth to make it available for those human beings who, through no fault of their own, are created needy by all man-made systems. So we will see that in this verse, this thing stands out very clearly, and we'll go over it in fair amount of detail today. Next is, fourth, to recognize the need for the collective system of salat and zakat. So we will see that the Quran is asking us to move from the individual to the collective system, and there is a transitional period during which what should we do. Fifth, to take on responsibilities and to deliver on these in this chosen path. Sixth, bear with patience and steadfastness the challenges of any hardships and adversities which will be faced on this path, and to never give up. And this is very obvious because from the man-made system, we will be moving towards the system of Deen. And the man-made system, which is extremely well-trenched, is going to oppose it. But Quran says not to worry about it. You go through your process of proceeding towards this system in steps, and you will see as you will go through it, you will become stronger and stronger on this path until the time then you will be able to establish it. And last point is, seventh, this process will lead to acquiring that self which will become muttaqi. The aim of the Quran is Zalikal Kitabu La Raiba Fihi Hudal lil Muttaqin. And we remember at the beginning we went through it, and Quran says this is the way you will become muttaqi. So the process which we will go through today in this presentation, we should keep in mind that this verse should be read forward as well as backward. Now we go to the verse, the process of establishing Deen outlined in this verse. لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تَوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ وَآتَى الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ وَالسَّائِلِينَ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَ الزَّكَاةَ وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَاهَدُوا وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. A lot covered in this one verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. In this way, these people become ignorant of the aim of Deen, and by presuming a few rituals and practices to be Deen, they consider obedience to these to be the aim. And this is the state of the sectarian Islam, that they think all these rituals and practices and customs are Deen. These are the end in themselves. Quran says no. But you should not fall into this trap. You should comprehend this reality well, that the path of expansiveness according to the divine law, due to which man fulfills the divine criterion, is not that you turn your face towards east or towards west. Though in order to create unity and harmony among the Ummah, obedience to such physical practices is also essential, but these have to be defined by the system. But these are not goal in itself. The aim is the establishment of that system whose fundamental principles are the following. See how Quran is setting the scene for subsequent discussion at the beginning of the verse by saying, Laisal birra. It is not birr, and we will go through what birr means. Normally, it is translated as virtue or righteousness, but its meaning is far wider than this narrow aspect. Iman in Allah, Iman in the law of requital and the life of the hereafter, Iman in those cosmic forces which become the means to implement the program of Mashiach, Iman in the Anbiya, that is the messenger sent by Allah with his revelation, through whom the divine message is communicated, and Iman in the books made available via these Anbiya. We have gone through in detail about Iman under verse 3 of Surah Al-Baqarah. But basically, Iman means that we acquire conviction in the values of the Quran over a fairly long period of time. Continuing with the meanings of the verse, after this Iman, that is ideology, which if we acquire, adopting this pathway in the practical world, that despite having an affinity for wealth and possessions, to make these generally available for the nourishment of others, whether they are relatives or such people who become lonely and are isolated in society, or those people whose running business grinds to a halt, or they lose the ability to work, or such wayfarers who lose the wherewithal to continue their journey, or those people whose earnings are not sufficient to meet their needs. Making one's own wealth available for allocating to meet their needs. We can see that how succinctly Quran summarizes the focus of our attention after acquiring Iman on the fundamental issues of any human society. In summary, to establish the system of Salat so that the means of nourishment keeps becoming available for all those who are needy. So that is an important aspect, that from individual to collective the Quran is coming, because it says that at individual level, whatever you do, it is not going to succeed, because what you need is a system of Salat. And then you have to recognize all these weaknesses within a system in which human beings suffer. Respecting one's own commitments and treaties, and being firm in word and deed. But if opposing forces resort to confrontation, then face these hardships and difficulties with great steadfastness and determination. And this is only possible if we are prepared for it and we have full conviction of our heart and mind on this path. And do not follow fear and apprehension to come anywhere close. Because if these things come closer to our psyche, that is fear and apprehension and reluctance and not being sure, creating uncertainty within ourselves, then we cannot carry out our task. Those people who remain firmly on this path are the ones who are truthful in their proclamation of Iman, and they have the right to say that through observing the law of Allah, they remain protected from the pitfalls of the path, not those who by calling a few rituals as Deen and by practicing those lay their right on being the heir to paradise. And this is the state of the sectarian Islam, which can never ever establish Deen because they do not know what Deen is. And secondly, those human beings who talk of Deen, they themselves do not possess that developed self which the Quran is asking us to acquire in the first place. Now let us go to the next slide. What is Birr? The term used in this verse at the beginning. This is the root of Birr. The original meanings of this root are vastness, generosity, and expanse. Because Quran is asking us to expand our vision so that we can understand human problems which man-made system has created in the first place. From the aspect of vastness, its meaning has also become numerous. For example, Abran al-Rajal means that a man acquired several progeny. Abran al-Qawm means that a nation multiplied. From this, it became used in the meanings of supremacy and control. Nawab Siddiq Hussain Khan has noted that in those words in which Ba and Ra appear together, and both these are in Bir, their meaning is manifestation. The meaning of Baran is that he became manifested, that some of the potentials have become manifested for others to see. From this, the meanings of vastness and supremacy become clear. From the aspect of expanse and vision and generosity of heart, the meanings of Barun are virtuous treatment on a vast scale, extending compassionate behavior and ihsan. Ihsan means to compensate for the weaknesses of others. If there is someone disabled, then we compensate him for that disability. It also means sadaqat, fulfilling one's word and obedience. Al-Barru is included in the divine attributes. Very important. For example, in this verse, Quran says, Innahu huwal barru rahim. So Rahim is making it very clear that it is about nourishment, development, and means of sustenance. A man who is truthful and extends ihsan. Itham has appeared as the opposite to Birrun in the Quran. Itham means weakness, sluggishness, fatigue. Hence, the meanings of Barrun will be power, vastness, abundance, expanse, generosity. Since Itham is a crime or a sin, hence Birrun is virtue. From the Quranic point of view, those will be virtuous deeds due to which the paths of expanse open up. Individually, vision becomes vast, the heart acquires openness, and expansiveness becomes created in the human self. And collectively, the means of sustenance are multiplied and increased. We can see that this term has very comprehensive and extensive meanings than what it is translated normally in various translations. We go to the next slide, a quote from Spontaneous Evolution by Lipton and Berman. I was going through this book and I came across this paragraph and I thought to share it over here. Since the dawn of human consciousness, we have sought to answer three perennial questions. How did we get here? That is in this world. Why are we here? So what is the purpose of our creation? Now that we are here, how do we make the best of it? Whoever or whatever entity provides the most satisfactory answers to these questions becomes the society's truth provider. And we know as students of the Quran that all these three are adequately answered in the Quran. So we have the Quran, which is the biggest truth provider. In fact, it is the only truth provider. At certain pivotal points, civilization has faced challenges for which old answers no longer sufficed. At such times, humans reached out for new and more functional explanations of life. Now, here is the first important point of this paragraph. Society seems to be at such a time now. So these two authors think that this is the time that we can address these issues adequately. Throughout history, people have applied two different descriptors on the nature of human existence, static and dynamic. Static stories show the world as unchanging and cyclical, and this is the position of the religion in the world. Often these stories are based on predictable, repeating patterns, along with the belief that whatever happened last year or over the last 1,000 years will likely happen again. So this is that kind of story of human beings who do not wish to change and want to follow their forefathers. The second is dynamic stories demonstrate progress based on evolution and learning. History clearly reveals that humans profoundly changed behavior when they encountered new information and experiences. So as and when Quran will come into their life, they will be willing to change. So this is something which people who grow out of the death of forefathers. In the past 100 years, technological innovations have not only changed our lives, they have impacted every species on the planet. So then these authors are discussing that it is an amalgam of static stories and dynamic stories. And I will say then if we add the story put forward about the human beings from the Quran, that will add to both of these. And the Quranic word will emerge out of these two words. Iman is not faith. We have gone through various aspects of Iman under verse 3. Allazina yu'minuna bil ghaibi wa yuqimuna as-salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfikun. What I will do is I will quote some of these presentations in the notes under this clip in YouTube. Who have Iman in the unseen, establish the system of Salat and make available that rizq which we have bestowed on them. However, just to recap, some aspects of Iman will be highlighted related to this presentation. In the English language, it is translated as faith. Iman is translated as faith. And faith means to accept something without evidence and logic, without knowledge and vision, without thinking and reflection. Acceptance without reasoning with eyes closed. And this is the general position of faith or belief, or Aqidah, they call it in Urdu, within sectarian Islam and other religions as well. And this kind of Iman is considered to be highly admirable under these religions. The greater the degree to which some individual accepts some matter without logic and reasoning, the greater his Iman is solid and unwavering. And we come across these kind of statements as well, that when we were following religion, and people will say, oh, so and so has got, because he carries out all types of rituals, so his Iman is unwavering. And this is the reason why intellect and Iman are considered to be the opposite of each other, and it is generally stated that we accept God without reasoning. This meaning of Iman is against its Quranic meaning. According to the Quran, Iman means to accept truth correctly based on knowledge and vision, logic and evidence, after thinking and reflection with the full conviction of the heart and mind. And without this kind of Iman, we simply cannot follow the Quran. And this is over a period of time. It is not just uttering few words of Shahada and think we have become a Muslim. This will be called conviction in the English language. Next slide is Allah throws light on Iman in the Quran. The Quran has declared that Mu'mineen are those people, those who, when they are admonished with the signs of their Rabb, droop not down at them as if they were deaf or blind. Even when the verses of Allah are presented to them, they do not bow before them as if deaf and blind. So Quran is asking us to pay attention to every verse in the context of the system of Deen from beginning to the end, and then relate it to the word in which we are living, and then also relate it to the word which it is asking us to construct, to build as system of Deen. Because unless we have two systems, we can't make choices. So one is the man-made system, and then there is a system presented by the Quran, and we have to compare and contrast and then say that our choice is for the system of Deen, which is presented by the Quran. They do not accept these by shutting their eyes. This is the fundamental trait of a mu'min. In another verse it is stated, therefore follow Allah's law, and Quran calls it taqwa, O you men of understanding who have accepted Iman. And we can see that throughout the Quran, it is repeatedly said that use your rational side, reason in every verse, and discuss it, look through it, and then accept it. Here it is stated that only those who are men of knowledge and understanding accept Iman. In Surah Al-Hajj it is stated, and that those on whom knowledge has been bestowed may learn that this, that is the Quran, is the truth from your Rabb, and that they may have Iman therein. And Quran all along does not compel us to accept its reality or its truths or its values. It says that you carry out analysis in your own mind and study it, and then see whether you wish to follow this path or not. But it has to be compared with the system, man-made systems in which you are living. So that those people who have knowledge in this matter, that this Quran is an established reality from your Allah. And knowledge means to know something by using our own intellect and based on evidence. Here also, Iman is conditionally linked to knowledge. The Quran presents the precise details of the modus operandi for accepting Iman. Understanding every single word of the Quran to be based on Al-Haq, and we know what Al-Haq means. Al-Haq means all those things, all those actions, all those deeds which produce constructive results, whether individually or collectively, and those are in line with the values presented by the Quran. Not within the man-made system. A lot of things produce constructive results, but those are within the relative values of the of the man-made system. Over here, Quran is asking us to judge these things within the context of the system of Deen and its values. And truth is called Iman. If any one of the matters noted in it is not accepted as truth, or a doubt sets in regarding it being based on truth, then the Iman of such an individual does not remain as Iman. So there has to be no iota of doubt and uncertainty once we have accepted Iman, which is explained and put forward in the Quran. To illustrate it further, the Quran has declared 5 constituents as being part of Iman, i.e. Allah, the hereafter, the Malaika, the books, and the Anbiya, and has declared the rejection of these or any one among these as kufr. The reason is that we have to establish the system of Deen. And Deen requires that those mu'mineen who have come together to establish this system are absolutely clear about their task of carrying out those responsibilities on behalf of Allah, which Allah has described in the Quran. The meaning of having Iman in them will be Iman according to all those details, differentiations, and characteristics which have been detailed about them in the Quran. If that Iman is not according to the Quranic concepts, then it will not be recognized. And recognized over here does not mean theoretically, because this Iman of the Quran should lead us to doing what the Quran is asking us to do, that is to work towards the establishment of the system of Deen. And that is not possible through the hands of those who themselves are not sure about their own Iman, whether it meets the Quranic standards or not. In order to accept Iman with the total satisfaction of the heart and mind, the Quran has described this technique itself. It says, whoever rejects evil, that is Taghut, and has Iman in Allah, has grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks. And we have gone through this verse previously as well. Quran says, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. All man-made systems are declared to be Taghuti system because those control other human beings through man-made laws. Quran wants us to come under the laws of Allah so that no human being is the master of another human being. They all follow the same law. Rejecting man-made systems and their ideologies. And this is an extremely important point for us to grasp from today's presentation. In this verse, that is 256 of Surah Al-Baqarah, see how the condition of rejecting evil, that is kufr bit taghut, is considered essential before reaching Iman in Allah. This is the sole criteria which we should take away from today's presentation, that we have to be fully dissatisfied with the man-made system despite being its beneficiaries. Even if we are beneficiaries of this system, but the effect this system is having on overall humanity, for example, it creates yatim and miskeen, we have to reject this system, and then we will see that we will come to what the Quran is telling us, and its realities, its facts, its values will start making sense to us. Without going into details, at-taghut can be understood as meaning every ideology, concept, belief, school of thought, and maslak which is against the Quran. So that means we have to carry out some kind of an analysis and have plenty of information about the man-made system and the ideologies and beliefs working behind it. Hence, in order to accept the Quranic truths, the foremost condition is that the mind should be cleansed and purified of all non-Quranic concepts and ideas. In this way, when the human mind has a clean slate, then the words and marks of Iman will be able to be imprinted on it. New writings cannot be inscribed on the slate which is already written on. Very important statement noted over here. New writings cannot be inscribed on the slate which is already written on. This action of rejection and acceptance are declared to be 2 constituents of this kalma or pronouncement, by the acceptance of which one then acquires Iman, that is La ilaha illallah. According to the first part of this kalma or pronouncement, it is essential that man rejects every non-divine God and after that accepts that God is Allah. Without this la part, that is this negation of every belief residing in our conscious and subconsciousness, Unless we get rid of it, we cannot move forward. The destination of Allah cannot be reached. Now over here, I will share a schematic replacing the contents of our minds with Eimaan. One similar one we had shared previously as well, but I thought to repeat it in a slightly different format. Here is a human mind. The Quran invites us to change the state of our psyche by seeking its guidance so that we can acquire a new psyche which becomes deserving of the help of the laws of Allah. So the whole purpose of our creation is to acquire this new psyche, a new life within us. That is, we change our nafs into a new nafs which has a very lofty and eminent aim of working as companion of Allah. Because Quran says, Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum minal zulumati ilan nur. That is, Allah is the companion of those who come out of the darknesses. He brings them out of darknesses of man-made system into light. And what is light? The Quran is the light. And is unable to accept those responsibilities which Allah has clearly outlined in the Quran. If the state of the collective psyche of those who call themselves Muslims fails to meet the criteria laid down by the Quran, then we need to investigate in the light of the Quran. And we know Quran calls itself Noor. Acquiring Iman willingly to change our psyche. And Quran has very clearly said there is no compulsion in Deen. We have to accept Iman willingly, absolutely, deliberately, that I am fed up with the man-made system, and the system of Deen given in the Quran is for me. And then understanding Iman as explained in the Quran and then accepting it as guidance without any kind of compulsion whatsoever. And these compulsions can be external as well as internal and both. For example, compulsions from the majority, compulsion of being born in a Muslim family, compulsion of getting some benefits associated by becoming a Muslim. And internal are that we already have this belief system and we say somehow I have to stick to it. This leads to a tangible change within us that is clearly signposted in the Quran, which helps to progress on Sirat-e-Mustaqim. So after acquisition of Iman, it is not something abstract that we do not know, because we clearly then understand that what we were and what we have become and what we are going to become in the future as well. And all this process is signposted by the Quran very clearly. Allazina yuminuna bil ghaib. And this is why Quran says that what you sow today, you are bound to reap it later on in your life. And since the life goes beyond death, and even if it is unseen at this point, but these results will appear before you in terms of your self-development as well as change in the outer physical world. And then Quran says, وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَاتِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ. And we can see how Birr becomes clear now. That now is the time that Iman has gone into our mind, and that is the one is saying that now I have acquired that Birr, I have acquired that expansiveness which is required to understand the system of Deen put forward by Allah in His book. But Birr is to accept Iman in Allah, the hereafter, the Malaika, the books, the Anbiya. We go to the next slide. Some signs after becoming Mu'mineen. As discussed previously under verse 3, that al-Mu'min means the one who guarantees peace and security. As far as mutual relations among Mu'mineen are concerned, there can be no doubt in their being guarantors of peace and security for each other. The Quran has declared them to be brothers of each other. And Quran says, Innamal mu'minuna ikhwatun. The mu'mineen are but a single brotherhood. This is a very important point which we should carry with us for rest of our life, that once we become mu'min and the change which comes within us over a period of time, that demands us, that internal need becomes that we should go and work with other mu'mineen. So we grow out of our biological relationships into a new relationship which is called Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, or coming together of Mu'mineen. If that does not materialize, that means we haven't acquired that Iman which is given in the Quran. Their characteristic, Quran defines as compassionate amongst each other. See, it's a beautiful verse. We can go through rest of it in our own time. Ruhma'u bainahum. And Rahim is related to Allah's attribute of Rahim. That means we have to become Rahim as well. We have to become Rahman as well. And we have to acquire all these divine attributes within the human capacity or human limitations. But these are the ones then we start displaying towards those who call themselves mu'mineen. They firmly stand for the system of rububiyat, and Quran says, Inna allazina qalu rabbuna Allahu summa istaqamu tatanazzalu alayhimul malaikatu alla takhafu wa la tahzanu. Our Rabb is Allah, because they see this. They clearly see the evidence of it and further stand straight and steadfast. Malaika descend on them. That is, the inner psychological forces become manifested, which were lying latent within them, and these can only come out through the Quran. Non-Quranic minds simply cannot have access to these inner psychological forces which are connected to the Quran, saying, fear you not nor grieve, because then they start seeing that system in which there will be no fear and no huzn, no grief, and they put in their best to establish that system. And this continues even after the system has been established. They fully understand the link between Iman and Salih deeds, i.e., perform those deeds as noted in the Quran, which help to draw out all the latent potentials of the self which are needed to aid in the establishment of the system of Deen. So we can see that the Quran is signposting whole of this process of our life once we acquire Iman and start doing Salih deeds, and we are following this path of Sirat-e-Mustaqim. It is not otherworldly, it is not abstract, it is not invisible. The change which comes within ourself, and that self then works even within the man-made system and displays those potentials as abilities, as capacities in the outer world. Now we go to the next part of the verse, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. We have seen that Allah continuously places an emphasis on making the means of sustenance and wealth available to all. Allazina yu'minuna bil ghaibi wa yuqimuna as-salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun. We covered this verse in detail in Surah Al-Baqarah, and we should go through this presentation once again. So wa'atal mala ala hubbihi means that they make their possessions and wealth available for others after acquiring that iman, which is explained by in previous slides, despite having affection for that possessions and for their wealth. And this is a very important point. We'll go through its details subsequently. In another verse, Quran says, "Lan tanalul birra hatta tunfiku mimma tuhibbuna wa ma tunfiku min shay'in fa innallaha bihi alim." And over here, I have again highlighted al-birra, which has appeared in verse 177 as well. And it is the same birr. And over here, Quran again emphasizes on this. You cannot access success. That is birr. So it is translated over here success, but what we should do is we should see it in a wider context of its meanings. That is, we cannot expand our vision. We cannot expand the horizon of our consciousness unless we do this, until you make available your alluring possessions for the needs of others. And this is a beautiful point which Quran is pointing our attention towards the psychological makeup of each human being. What it is saying is that despite having attraction for these wealth and possessions, you should try to get rid of some of them to make space for understanding the problems of other human beings and the problems created by the man-made systems. And this is not possible unless we do it. Whatever you make available, Allah has knowledge of it, both physical and cognitive aspects of this. That is, we have to take into account the physical side as well as the intellectual side of human beings. And by making it Behi Alim means Allah is asking us that we should also become Alim, and this is how we will become Alim. That is, this is how we will acquire this attribute of Allah. Here in this verse 177, Allah has drawn our attention towards our proclivity towards wealth and possessions and has asked us to look at the impact of this kind of system which permits the accumulation of wealth in a few hands. In another place, emphasis is placed on keeping wealth in circulation after mentioning the needy. And Quran says, La yakuna dulatan bainal agnaye minkum. That is, this wealth, in order that it may, that is, the wealth may not make a circulation between the wealthy among you. And we should look at rest of the verse as well from the Quran in our own time. Allah being Rabbil Alameen, that is, who has taken the responsibility of Rububiyat and sustenance for whole of mankind for all times, asked the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen to take responsibility on his behalf because Quran says, Nahnu narzuqukum wa iyahum. So whatever responsibilities Allah says in the Quran is His, that is the responsibility of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen. And that is the responsibility of all of us who wish to become students of the Quran, acquire Eimaan, and work on this path together. For Yatim and Miskeen are created by all man-made systems. And this means to recognize this aspect using our latent potentials. These are those salih deeds which bring out this side of our psyche which remains inaccessible to those who do not either come to the Quran or ignore this aspect despite reading it. So that means that whatever good we do, it should be done with a view to bring out our latent potentials, that is to understand the human problems and then try to create a desire and focus within us and need for this so that we work for it and never to give up. And that is what it means. So we possess those latent potentials to which the Quran is drawing our attention, which need to be brought out in the light of the Quran to carry out all those tasks which Allah has taken on Himself. And this is the loftiest possible aim in life for us. We go to the next slide. Some aspects of human weaknesses noted by the Quran. There are a lot more mentioned in the Quran, but over here I've only taken one slide from our previous presentation. Quran says man was created weak. Man is a creature of haste, and we know people want to do things very quickly and get quick results because all of them see at the deadline of death all the time. For man is given to hasty deeds. For man is miserly. And this comes out of this verse that it has very strong proclivity towards accumulation of wealth and possessions. Truly man was created very impatient, short-term view of life. Because most human beings think that the life will end with death. And that is why if we talk to them, their definition of success will never include the concept of Allah and the life of the hereafter or their own accountability. It will revolve around the material needs and material conveniences. But man is in most things contentious, and we can see plenty of its examples, particularly in the elite of today's world. He was indeed unjust and foolish because he doesn't realize that the life will go beyond death as well. So he keeps doing injustice to himself and as a result suffers and is not going to find anything for him beyond his physical death. That is, no self-development takes place. Man has no fitrat. Some people say human beings have a nature. We do not have a nature because we have choice and intent inbuilt within us, and hence we make choices at every point in our life. He has choice, both paths of life shown to him very clearly. Man is competitive in material things. So Quran says that give up these competitions in material things, but exceed each other or be competitive in doing good. Man considers his life in this world to be play and amusement, and we can see plenty of it in a world of 2026. Man finds attraction in riches, children, spouses. Even some of those who accept Eimaan prefer their fathers, sons, brothers, kindred, the wealth they have gained, the business they have established, and their dwellings above the cause of Allah. Very important verse, and we should go through it in Surah Tawbah in our own time. The last point is they think it is Allah who provides sustenance directly in this human world to mankind. That is the issue of taqdeer, and this kind of concept exists among sectarian Islam. We go to the next slide, examples of imbalances highlighted. Now, this verse then covers some aspects of problems in the human society, particularly covers some aspects which are found under man-made system. First term used is Zawil Qurba, those needy human beings to be recognized who live around you. So Quran says that you should recognize these human beings who are living around you in your immediate vicinity, and it calls them Zawil Qurba. Then it calls the next one Wal Yatama. In the Arabic language and the Quran, this word appears for those human beings who become isolated within society. The Quran has illustrated this in this verse by saying Yatiman za makrabatin, the feeling of being yatim despite being in the presence of so many others around him. Acquiring and becoming alive to these issues and feelings is part of achieving birr. Yatim is also translated as orphans, but as it is noted over here that in Arabic language it has wider connotation. Next term used in the verse is wal masakin. Its root is this, which means to become static, the disappearance of movement. And we know that if we become disabled, then how problematic it can be. At an individual level, it means that person whose functioning business of life comes to a halt. And in the man-made system, this is quite common. Or he becomes disabled, leading to becoming dependent. Manifesting this potential, which is related to recognizing this aspect in human society, is part of acquiring birr. And it also means that do not establish a system in which there is uncertainty prevails and people do not know that what is coming next in their life. And whole man-made system is based on speculations and uncertainty. Wabna Sabil is next term used in the verse. Sabil means a path, and its meaning in this term is taken to be a wayfarer. Among Arabs, this term was used for those travelers whose means of sustenance somehow used to become consumed. Acquiring potentials, to recognize this aspect and do something about it is also part of possessing birr. So all these aspects we have to recognize. We have to expand our vision, expand our consciousness to that level where we recognize human beings who are suffering in the world. Continuing, and some more aspects covered in the verse. Next one is wasailin, those human beings who are in need or have become dependent. This means to become aware of the conditions which create such human beings and to be conscious of the psychological impact of such conditions on these fellow human beings. Acquiring this kind of higher consciousness is part of acquiring birr. And that is part of it. It is not that we look at these deprived human beings as physical beings. We should be able to look at them cognitively as well. So that is part of acquiring birr. Wafir Rakab, the neck is called Al-Raqaba. Hence the meaning of Fir Rakab is that of a slave. In our time, slavery has acquired the form of keeping a whole nation as slaves. Hence, today in Fir Rakab, those nations will also be included whose freedom has been taken away and they are striving to acquire their freedom. Helping them will be the duty of the Jamaat-e-Momineen, the Islamic government. So if today's nations are enslaved economically, for example, by the more powerful, it means that there is no Jamaat-e-Momineen in the world. In fact, whole of this so-called Muslim Ummah is also a slave of the most powerful. The Quranic freedom is of a far higher stature than the freedom which can be imagined under the Taghuti system. After listing these categories of human beings created by all man-made systems, that is Taghut, and seeing their impact on the individual and collective human psyche, Allah invites us to move out of the transitionary stage of the establishment of Deen and think of evolving the collective system of Salat and Zakat. So now we can see that Quran is now moving towards the collective system and its establishment. And Quran says part of birr is وَآقَمَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَ الزَّكَاةَ. Salat and Zakat are two fundamental concepts around which the system of Deen takes shape. For example, in Surah Al-Hajj, Quran says, Allazina in makannahum fil arde aqamus salata wa atuz zakata wa amru bil maruf wa nahwanil munkar wa lillahi aqibatul umur. They are those who, if given power in the land, establish salat and execute zakat, and join what is right and forbid what is wrong. All their affairs are managed according to the guidance of Allah. And over here I put down as execute zakat, though the words used are wa'at zakat, they give zakat. That means they are the ones who establish that system where self-development takes place. Because without self-development, there is no life in the hereafter. And without self-development, even system of the Deen cannot function properly, because it is at self's level that human beings carry out the functions on behalf of Allah. And that is another very important point over here. وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَاتُ الْأُمُورِ. In the system of Deen, all matters go back to Allah's book. The meaning of Salat will be to connect with the commands of Allah, remain within the limits defined by Allah, and remain in touch with the book of Allah. And this aspect has been covered in a great detail under verse 3 of Surah Al-Baqarah. The meaning of zakat includes growth in possessions, giving prosperity. Its basic meaning is getting nourishment, growth, and development. It includes the aspects of progress, growth, and further evolution. And within this concept of zakat, we should also keep in mind that we are not animals. We are far more than animals because of our cognitive abilities. We think as well. And the way we live our life, we also want to put some kind of a rational reasoning over it. That why are we doing it? What is the purpose of our life? How are we getting on with our life? And what have we done for the hereafter? And the working of the law of mukafat or law of requital is extremely important, that we understand its functioning, that we do a lot of good today so that what we sow today we should be able to reap in the future. So these are important psychological aspects to which the Quran is drawing our attention, and all these are covered under the term Birr. The meaning of these two terms in the Quran is to establish such a society in which members of the society, by obeying the laws of Allah, reach their intended destination. And that is another important point, intended destination. What is the intended destination of the system of Deen? Is to live this life free from fear and huzn, on Sirat-e-Mustaqim, heading towards the life of the hereafter, and staying together with united hearts as given in the Quran, and follow Allah's laws so that we create a model state for others in the world so that they don't suffer. Ita'i zakat means to give, i.e. to provide the means of nourishment, and in this both physical life and the human self are included. Both salat and zakat have been covered under various verses, for example, under the topic of rububiyat. We move to the next slide, and in this, the next part of the verse is wal mufuna bi ahdihim iza ahadu. It is commonly translated as those people who fulfill their promises. But there is a difference between a promise that is wada and ahad. Promise or wada is generally individual. So over here, Quran is going beyond the individual level of perception. And it is saying that since it is now mention of salat and zakat as a system, so we should look at it from that aspect. But it also means that individual fulfillment of promises and agreements is also extremely important. We simply cannot become mu'min if we do not fulfill our individual agreements and commitments as well. But the fundamental meaning of ahd is to take care of something continuously and to keep an eye on it, to take care of it on sustained basis. And it is also in the meaning of responsibility. Hence, the meaning of ahd will be to take care of one's own responsibilities on a sustained basis, not for one day, not for 2 days, but rest of our life. And we should look at it as well, also monitor it. From this, the meaning of fulfilling ahd will become clear, because it is a weakness in a system if it does not fulfill its commitments and the procedures are not in place, because then it is against the law of requital. And we can see how commitments are and and contracts and agreements are being broken right, left, and center in today's world. In verse 23:8, regarding the attributes of the Mu'mineen, Quran has stated, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَأَهْدِهِمْ رَاؤُونَ. They take care of their trusts and commitments. In this, two entities have appeared separately, لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَأَهْدِهِمْ. Amanat means to take over certain responsibilities or obligations. These are those obligations which are taken over on behalf of Allah, and ahad will mean to fulfill these. So there is no point in taking over responsibilities and obligations and not carrying these out. To fulfill these, i.e., establish such a system which fulfills all these responsibilities. This leads to the concept of rights and duties. The system is established in such a way that the responsible members are asked to fulfill their ahad in relation to the duties they have willingly assumed, and other members of the state are asked not to betray things entrusted to them. So from this, the permanent value also comes out, which means that you assign responsibility to those who can carry out those trusts, those responsibilities. And the next part of the verse is وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. The next part of the verse is وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ, to be firm and patient in suffering and adversity and throughout all periods of hardships. Abasu is loss in possessions and wealth, and al-darau is injury to the physical body. In confronting batil, there is a risk of some loss of life as well as of possessions. And here Allah has pointed to this aspect. And Quran says very clearly that this life of yours, if you spend it and lay it down for a higher purpose of life, then you are not going to lose your life. This is inbuilt within us, that is, the self has the capacity that when it lays down its life, that is body, for a higher purpose, it is bound to go on to live another life. And Quran has put emphasis on that death is going to come to you in any case. So you should consider it logically, rationally, and reason it within your own mind, that is it worth spending your life in the cause of Allah or in the cause of Taghut or Iblis, and then have no life in the hereafter. While following the path of Taghut, you will get nothing, while following the path of Allah and this Sirat-e-Mustaqim will give you that strength which will tell you that you have become a different human being, you have acquired new life now. We have covered these aspects under verses 155 to 157, that those who persevere through these stages which are likely to be faced in the establishment of the system of Deen, they become deserving of the appreciation and support of Allah as per His laws. This aspect needs to be analyzed as part of the process of progressing towards the acquisition of power in the land. If we just look at this part of the verse without taking into account the earlier parts, then we may consider it to be impossible to achieve. However, Allah is inviting us to commence our line of thought from the requirement for Eimaan and understand the higher purpose of human creation, i.e., to be fully aware of the problems created by man-made systems. So what is the alternative? Just to accept man-made system and reduce ourselves to this kind of belief that nothing can be done. And that is hopelessness. And Quran wants us that grow out of this hopelessness. Here is my book. This is my word. Start working on it and then see whether Allah's laws help you or not. And Quran says 100% these laws are going to help you. Finally, concluding the verse concludes by stating, Ulaika allazina sadaku wa ulaika humul muttaqun. These are the ones who prove the truth of their proclamation of Eimaan, and they thus possess the right that they should declare themselves to be muttaqi, i.e., they should say that while taking care of the laws of Allah, they remain protected from the dangers appearing on the journey of life. See how much Quran is emphasizing to value our physical existence as well. It is saying that you value your own self and value your physical existence, your own body and its importance as well, because body is the carrier and you should try to give it as long age as possible. It is in your own hand. And then start working on it acquire Iman, and create that desire and need within you to be united with those who have Iman, and then work together, unite your hearts, and not to worry about the results which are lying down in the future waiting for you. If you are following this path, then as per law of requital, whatever you sow, so shall you reap, and this reaping will take place at some point in the future where power is bound to come in your direction. So this is a simple formula, and one should not give it up, because one has to create that kind of a motive and incentive within us by thinking through it rationally day and night and see what is the alternative. The alternative is to live under the man-made system and its subjugation and its humiliation and its disrespect and absence of dignity as human beings, or an alternative to work towards the system of Deen as companion of Allah and give it a go and see what happens and whether the law of Allah helps or not. But these are initial stages. These are the uncertainties of initial stages. Once we go through, once we tread on this path for a few years, then that inner assurance, inner conviction becomes created, which tells us that this path will never let us down. The matter commenced from this, that the vastness of the path of Deen, that is Al-Birr, is not how much you practice the symbols of the commands of Allah. The practicing of these physical rituals can be carried out easily. Their practicing is not evidence of the proclamation of Iman. We can keep praying and keep worshipping and carrying out all rituals. The word is never going to change, because these do not change our inner psyche. These give false hope, and wrong beliefs can never take us onto the right, correct destination, which is defined by the Quran. Following a wrong path can never take us to the correct destination. Never mind how much effort we put in on a wrong path. Its proof is presented by those people who sacrifice their life and possessions for the achievement of the goals of Deen. They deserve the right to call themselves Mu'min and Muttaqi. It is the proclamation of Allah that these kinds of symbolic practices are not righteousness. And that is why Quran says, Laisal birra. It is not birr. However, sectarian versions of Islam keep declaring that this is true righteousness, and do not listen to Allah. You keep doing what the religion says, you will get a certificate for Jannat, and this Jannat is not that of the Jannat of Allah of the Quran. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.